guys, welcome back to Study Room. Here we are with another poem titled as Macavity the Mystery Cat. Oh, it's about the mystery cat. So how many of you are fond of cats and have cat as pets? I love cats, guys. So yes, this poem is going to be another interesting one that we will unfold. So are you excited and geared up? Let's move forward. First, about the poet. T.S. Eliot, born on 1888, died in 1965, was a poet and playwright born and brought up in America. He later became a British citizen. Some of his famous works are The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock and The Waste Land. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1948. So the major points that you should know about the author is T.S. Eliot. He was a poet and playwright who was born in America but became a British citizen. His famous works could be Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, The Waste Land. He won Nobel Prize for Literature in 1948. Okay, so this is about the poet who has written the poem. Now let's discuss the theme, the background of the poem. The poem is taken from the Eliot's book Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, in which Macavity is the villain. Oh, so cat and villains. So this poem that we are going to read today is basically taken from the Eliot's book, so poet's book, which is Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, in which Macavity is the villain. So Macavity, it's actually based on a Professor Moriarty, the villain in the Sherlock Holmes stories. So I don't know if how many of you are fans of Sherlock Holmes and have read his story, but there's this Professor Moriarty. I know Professor reminds you of Money Heist, but yeah. So Professor Moriarty, the villain in the Sherlock Holmes stories. Macavity and Moriarty have both been described as the Napoleon of crime. So they are being described as these crime masters, and this poem is taken from Eliot books. And Macavity is the villain. It's based on the character of Sherlock Holmes stories villains. So let's read the poem first. Macavity is a mystery cat. He's called the Hidden Paw, for he's the master criminal who can defy the law. So they're first trying to introduce what the cat is. So Macavity, a mystery cat. He's called the Hidden Paw. So what it is called? So Macavity first described her, major thing that he's a mystery cat. And then they said it's a hidden paw because he's the master of criminal who can defy any law. So defies, go against, or just do anything that he wants and doesn't have to follow laws. He's the bafflement of Scotland Yard and the Flying Squad's despair. For when they reach the scene of crime, Macavity's not here. So they say about that, he must be the bafflement of Scotland Yard or Flying Squad despair, because whenever you reach the scene of crime, the cat goes missing. It's not there. So either it had to be like, it can fly or it has some superpowers. Macavity, there's no one like Macavity. He's broken every human law. He breaks the law of gravity. So they say again that, Macavity, the mystery cat, has broken every human law, and maybe it even breaks the law of gravity. So this is like a pun intended. His powers of levitation would make a fakir stare, and when you reach the screen of crime, Macavity is not there. So again, repeating, the poet is trying to impose that its talent and this thing as a villain is so smart and sharp and has such powers that whenever you see the crime scene, it's not there. You may seek him in the basement, you may look up in the air, but I tell you once and once again, Macavity is not there. So the poet is saying either search for him in the basement, the parking, in the air, anywhere, but you will still not find him. Macavity is a ginger cat. He's very tall and thin. So here they're trying to describe his personality to us. The charisma, ginger cat, tall, thin. You would know him if you saw him, for his eyes are sunken in. His brow is deeply lined with thought. His head is highly domed. So they're trying to tell with the words like head is highly domed that, how he thinks proud of himself. He's into thinking precise. That's why he can do such master things. His coat is dusty from neglect, his whiskers are uncombed. He sways his head from side to side with movements like a snake. So they're comparing his movement like a snake as fast as you can't even see. And when you think he's half asleep, he's always wide awake. So don't doubt that he's sleeping and you can kill him. He's always awake. Macavity, Macavity, there's no one like Macavity, for he's a find in feline shape, a monster of depravity. You may meet him by a street, you may see him in the square, but when a crime's discovered, then Macavity is not there. So the poet is trying to say that you can see him everywhere. You can find him in the streets, you may see him in the squares, but when there's a crime scene for which you have to catch him red-handed, you will never see him. So, key terms: defy, disobey. Scotland Yard, headquarters of the London Police Force. Flying squad, a group of police or soldiers ready to move into action. Levitating, floating in the air without support. Fakir, a religious ascetic who performs miracles. Find is a devil. So before we go into the theme, let's now, because you know the key terms, let's read the poem again. Macavity is a mystery cat. He's called the Hidden Paw, for he's the master criminal who can defy the law. He's the bafflement of Scotland Yard, the flying squad's despair, for when they reach the scene of crime, Macavity is not there. Macavity, Macavity, there's no one like Macavity. He's broken every human law, he breaks the law of gravity. His powers of levitation would make a fakir stare, and when you reach the scene of crime, Macavity is not there. You may seek him in the basement, you may look up in the air, but I tell you once and once again, Macavity is not there. Macavity is a ginger cat, he's very tall and thin. You would know him if you saw him, for his eyes are sunken in. His brow is deeply lined with thought, his head is highly domed. His coat is dusty from neglect, his whiskers are uncombed. He sways his head from side to side with movements like a snake, and when you think he's half asleep, he's always wide awake. Macavity, Macavity, there's no one like Macavity, for he's a find in feline shape, a monster of depravity. You may meet him in a by street, you may see him in the square, but when a crime's discovered, then Macavity is not there. We've discussed the key terms, now let's go to the explanation, theme and everything of the poem. This is a fun children's poem about a master criminal cat called Macavity, and this character is taken from Sherlock Holmes' villains. Through the poem, we are given a character sketch of someone who breaks the law and does not get caught. This could also describe an actual human criminal. So as every poem, there's a symbolism, there's a reference. So this cat is inspired from a human and is also talking about human criminals. So the comparison is clever because cats are known for moving quietly. So they've compared it to a cat because cat is an animal that moves quietly, and they say they're smart too, right? So yeah. The name Macavity itself contains cavity, meaning hole or wide, showing how the criminal cat is never caught. So you know how smartly he's played with words. Macavity basically contains cavity word, which means hole or wide, which again is depicting one of his the personas that it can never be caught. The interesting thing is that it provides an exaggerated description, like from his powerful eyes to how he cannot sleep, to the smart mind, to wherever you see in the air and basement you cannot. So there's an exaggerated description of who Macavity is, what he looks like, while also saying that he can never be caught. So people have seen him at the square, at the street, and that's why they can describe him, but nobody can really catch him. So this was the majorly. So the whole poem was about a criminal cat who's intelligent, who's smart, and who has been described as the most witty cat with sharp eyes, unbrows chin and everything, with like a very strong persona, and who cannot be caught. Okay, so the whole poem is about that, and it's referring to human criminals who cannot be caught. So question 1 read the first stanza and think, is Macavity a real cat really? So, when we read the first stanza, it's not a clear depiction of a cat. It's maybe a smart person, a criminal. If not, who can Macavity be? It can be a villain. It can be a criminal. Complete the following sentences. A master criminal is one who never gets caught, like Macavity. The Scotland Yard is baffled because they are not able to catch Macavity. Dash, because Macavity moves faster than them. Dash, because Macavity moves much faster than them. So it's called Macavity because cats, because Macavity moves faster than them. Yeah. A cat, I'm sure, could walk on the cloud without coming through. Jules Verne has said this, okay? A cat, I'm sure, could walk on a cloud without coming through. Which law is Macavity breaking in the light? It's the gravity, okay? The law of gravity. So the law of gravity is that, when Earth is around, but we all are not walking around because there's some atmospheric force. So that's called law of gravity. Read stanza 3 and then describe Macavity in 2 or 3 sentences of your own. So, as I remembered, so we can say that even if he's half-sleepy, he's wide awake, that means his eyes. Then, an unbrowsed hairline, and then, his color which has been described. Say false or true for each of the following statements. Macavity is not an ordinary cat. It's not. It's a criminal cat. Macavity cannot do what a fakir can easily do. So fakir is the one who do miracles, right? So cannot do what fakir can easily do. Macavity can do because it's not getting caught, it's getting disappeared. Is a spy, trickster, criminal all rolled in one? Yes. Macavity has supernatural powers? No, it's just said as that way. Is well-dressed, smart and bright? Yes. Well-dressed, not sure because they say that the hairs are uncombed and everything, so you have to go back and check. Having read the poem, try to guess whether the poet is fond of cats. If so, why does he call Macavity a fiend and a monster? So, the poet is fond of cats because you can see that this has been taken from his whole book of cats. But if he's fond of cats and he wants to show people how smart and wise cats are, so that's why he says he's monster. He's trying to show the persona and the power of cats. He's saying them a villain, but he's even complimenting them. So understand that. Has the poet used exaggeration for a special effect? He has used exaggeration for us to imagine and go into this thing about cats. Oh my god, the next time you see cat, you will only imagine Macavity. Is she also Macavity? Is he also so smart? Now let's do a quick revision. Macavity is a criminal known by the names Mystery Cat, Hidden Paw. He defies the law but manages to escape the scene, whether it's Scotland Yard or Flight Square that is after him. It's not just human law but also the law of gravity, as he can levitate even better than a fakir. Macavity is described as a ginger cat who's tall, thin, sunken eyes, lightly domed head and a dusty fur coat. Is the kind of person you could run on the road, but by the time you realize he's already escaped. He does not look like criminal but is actually evil. So this is about Macavity and the poem. It was a very interesting poem, guys. Read it again, try to understand. If you still do not understand, go through the key terms, try to answer the questions, read the stanzas and everything. Till then, we'll be back with another chapter. Till then, see you all. Bye-bye.